Someone commented on my last video asking for a real motion design principles and industry standard guide. So here it is. Here's one sentence that explains everything in this video. Motion design is graphic design plus animation. That's it. Without good graphic design, there's no good motion design. You're just moving bad layout around. And without animation principles, even a perfect static layout falls flat the second it moves. So, this video has 3 parts. First, the graphic design principles your motion is built on top of. Second, the animation principles that bring it to life. Third, and this is the part almost nobody talks about, the industry standards that you're going to encounter when you're working with a real project. So let's start with a little context on where this even comes from. Motion design isn't new. It just didn't have a name for a long time. Saul Bass basically invented the modern film title sequence in the 1950s, fusing graphic design with animation for the first time in a way audiences actually noticed. From there, broadcast graphics, VHS era title cards, early computer animation, and eventually After Effects turned this into an actual industry. The reason this history matters? Every era added tools, but the underlying principles never change. The same reason a 1950s title card worked is the same reason a 2026 YouTube long-form intro works. Software changes, principles don't. Okay, quick reason why we're starting with graphic design and not animation. Motion design is often taught backwards. People jump into keyframes and easing curves before they've actually ever learned why a layout works in the first place. But animation doesn't fix a bad composition. If your hierarchy isn't clear, animating it creates more confusion rather than clarity. If your color and type choices are already competing for attention, adding movement makes that competition worse, not better. Graphic design is the composition you are animating. Animation is how you move through time. You need the graphic design to be solid before the animation means anything. So that's where we start. Hierarchy is what tells the eye where to look first, second, third. If everything on screen is the same size, weight, and color, nothing stands out. The eye doesn't know where to start. Size, weight, contrast, and position all create hierarchy. Balance is about visual weight being distributed so nothing feels like it's about to tip over. But you don't always want balance. Sometimes you want tension. Intentionally unbalanced composition create energy and pull the eye. Balance feels calm. Tension feels alive. Contrast is what separates elements from each other and from the background. Color, size, weight, texture. Without contrast, elements blend together and your message disappears into the noise. Negative space isn't empty space. It's a design element on its own. It gives the eye somewhere to rest and make the elements that are there feel intentional instead of cramped in. Usually, beginners fear empty space. Professionals, they use it as a tool. Repetition creates consistency. Same fonts, same spacing, same color logic, reused throughout a piece. Rhythm is repetition over time. A visual beat the eye can predict and follow. Together, they what make a multi-scene project feel like one cohesive piece instead of 5 disconnected ideas stitched together. Okay, now that the layout is solid, this is where the motion design becomes motion. These principles come from traditional animation, but every one of them directly applies to motion graphics. I made a video about motion design terms and explained briefly what they are. You can watch it here. Timing is hierarchy in a 4th dimension. Time. It's not just what appears, it's when and how long it takes. Nothing in the real world moves at a constant speed. Linear movement is the fastest style of an amateur animation. Ease out of a start, ease into a stop. Fast in the middle, slow at the edges. That's a baseline for anything to read as believable. Before a big action, there's usually a small opposite action first. A logo shrinks slightly before it pops. Without anticipation, big movement feels like they came out of nowhere, and the eyes isn't ready for them. Nothing stops all at once. When motion stops, elements should settle at slightly different times instead of all freezing on the same frame. It's subtle, but it's difference between something that looks animated and something that looks alive. Secondary animation is a motion that supports the main action without competing with it. A subtle background element, a secondary shape reacting to the primary one, it adds richness without pulling focus away from the main event. Styling is where your graphic design principles and your animation principles actually meet. Color, texture, and visual treatment applied consistently across every frame of motion, not just the static frame one. This next part is the difference between craft as a hobby and craft as a job. Nobody makes a video about this, so here's what actually decides whether a client or a studio wants to hire you again. Clients don't care about your principles if the file doesn't meet spec. Know your deliverable frame rate before you animate a single frame. 24 frames per second for film style, 30 frames for most social and broadcast, 60 frames per second for slow motion heavy work. Get the frame rate wrong and you're redoing your timing from scratch. Resolution and aspect ratio work the same way. Vertical, square, and widescreen are the same composition with a different crop. They're different edits. If you don't know what frame rate is, I made a video explaining about it along with other video editing terms here. This is the least exciting, most important standard in the whole industry. How you name your layers, organize your comps, and label your files. In a studio or freelance handoff, someone else or future you has to open that project. Layer 47 and comp final version 3 is how you lose clients' trust fast. Clean naming isn't perfectionism, it's professionalism. Clients don't approve things in one round. Industry standard is expecting 2 to 3 revision rounds and structuring your project so a revision doesn't mean rebuilding from scratch. Pre-comps, adjustment layers, organized structure, so a color change or timing takes minutes, not hours. Professional motion design isn't, does this look cool? It's, does this match the brand? Working with an existing style guide, respecting established color systems, typography, and motion language, even when you'd personally do it differently. That's the actual job most of the time. Every principle in this video is by default, not a law. Once you generally understand why hierarchy works or why easing reads as natural, you're allowed to break it. Intentionally, for effects. Jarring linear movements, chaotic balance, zero negative space, these can all be the right choice, but only when it's a decision, not by accident. So, if you want to actually get better, pick one principle from this video, graphic design, animation, or industry standard, and spend a week working with only that one in mind, not chasing a new effect. Just that one thing until it's automatic to you. So that's it for now. If you learned a thing or two, please do subscribe because I will make more creative educational videos such as this. And also let me know in the comments if you have some topics that you want me to tackle too, okay? I'll see you in the next one.